Men today are no longer magnetic, not because they lack money, muscles, or opportunity, but because they lack what matters at the core: depth, backbone, and the presence that commands respect. You wonder why women don't respect you? Why society doesn't listen to you? Why you walk into a room and no one gives a damn? It's not bad luck, it's because you lack weight. In this video, I'll break down 7 traits that can't be faked, traits of a truly magnetic man. Not shallow, surface-level charm, but the kind of presence that earns silent respect. Don't watch this if you're easily offended, but if you're ready to face the truth and seriously level up, watch until the end, because the final part is a wake-up call meant for you. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget to like this video and share a meaningful comment. A man who can't control his emotions doesn't deserve to control anything else. He might have degrees, status, high income, but if a single critique makes him explode, one random message sparks jealousy, or a small failure knocks him down, then all of that is just a hollow shell. That's not strength. That's instability dressed up in titles. Men today are too used to letting emotion take the wheel. Feel sad, stay in bed all day. Feel angry, lash out at others. Feel lonely, fill the void with meaningless relationships. But magnetic men, trustworthy men, don't operate like that. They feel everything, but let nothing control them. They don't suppress emotions, but they don't serve them either. They choose intentional responses, not instinctive reactions. Want to know why women are drawn to men like this? Because he's the anchor in the storm. When others panic, he stays calm. When life flips, he holds his ground. Not because he feels nothing, but because he's forged inner discipline. Something the modern world is severely lacking. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be a cold machine. It teaches you to be an emotional warrior. A warrior isn't fearless, he acts despite fear. And that begins with learning to recognize, master, and lead your own emotions before they drown you like they do everyone else. A magnetic man isn't magnetic because he's always happy, always right, or always strong. He's magnetic because he can stand firm in the face of the very things that break others. And if you don't learn how to control your emotions, you'll always be the one controlled by others, by your environment, and worst of all, by your own weakness. There's one thing weak men don't understand. Talking more doesn't make you more valuable. It just makes your lack of control more obvious. A magnetic man doesn't speak to feel good. He speaks to make impact. Every sentence, every word carries weight. He doesn't ramble, doesn't explain endlessly, doesn't try to make others understand him, because he knows someone with real value doesn't need to justify himself. The world is full of people who use words to hide their emptiness. They recount their past hoping for pity. They flaunt achievements to patch a broken ego. They complain, blame, gossip, as if words are the only way to prove they exist. But the truth is the opposite. The more you talk, the more you expose your insecurity. The attractive man understands that words are a weapon, and weapons are not to be used carelessly. He doesn't flirt with women using cheap compliments. He doesn't engage in pointless arguments. He never seeks approval by diminishing himself. When he speaks, others go quiet, not out of fear, but because there's something in his tone, his gaze, his choice of words that demands attention. The Stoics taught, if your words don't make your life better, don't say them. The Stoic man always asks, is this sentence necessary? Will it move me forward, or is it just an emotional reaction? Most people can't stand silence because they fear being forgotten. But the man with backbone is at ease in silence because he knows true value doesn't need to scream to be recognized. When you command your words, you no longer need to try to make an impression. You don't have to force your presence in a conversation. Don't need to make things up to stay relevant. You can say just a few lines, and each one will make the other person question the way they're living. And here's the bottom line. Commanding your words starts with commanding your thoughts. You can't speak powerfully if your mind is a mess. You can't communicate with weight if your mind is always trying to please others. Words reflect the inner world. Clear mind, sharp words. In the end, a man who commands his words is a man who can build or destroy an entire world with just his voice. If you haven't realized that yet, maybe you haven't earned the weight a real man's words are supposed to carry. Harsh as it sounds, you've spent most of your life trying to please others. You dress to look socially acceptable. You speak in ways that feel safe. You choose jobs that make you look respectable. You've locked yourself inside a cage called acceptance and convinced yourself that it's freedom. Stop lying to yourself. A magnetic man doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need anyone's approval, doesn't wait for permission to live according to his nature. He doesn't ask, "Do people agree?" He asks, "Am I doing what's right?" He doesn't need applause to know he has value. On the flip side, weak men will do anything to be liked, even betray themselves. They stay quiet when they should speak. They nod along when they disagree inside. They play the role of nice, approachable, safe, hoping to be accepted by a group that, in reality, doesn't give a damn about them. They live like shadows, wearing fake smiles, sacrificing who they are, just to be called a good guy. But the real tragedy is this: they don't respect themselves, so no one else truly respects them either. Attractiveness doesn't come from trying to be like everyone else. It comes from having the guts to be yourself, even if that means being misunderstood, criticized, or hated. The attractive man doesn't sit around hoping everyone likes him. He lives by principle, by discipline, and by a standard he created for himself, and lets the rest filter out. Whoever fits, stays. Whoever doesn't, can leave. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be isolated. It teaches you to build an inner strength so solid that you don't need external validation to survive. Validation may come and it may go, but your honor in front of yourself must never be compromised. If you want to be truly magnetic, drop the need to be liked. Start living in a way that earns your own respect. So when you lift your head and look in the mirror, you can say, "I'm not perfect, but I live by what I believe." That feeling is more powerful than any applause you'll ever receive. You don't need the world's approval. You need a reason to hold your head high, even if you walk alone. Because in the end, the only person walking with you to the finish line is you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. It's the best way to support me in creating more valuable content. A man who doesn't know how to say no is a man without a spine. You might think saying no is rude, selfish, lacking empathy. But the truth is, the more afraid you are to say no, the more your life is being controlled by others, by circumstances, by that guilt someone programmed into your head since childhood. The weak man is the one who can't stand making others upset. He says yes to every invitation, agrees to every request, fakes a smile when being used, and makes excuses to avoid confrontation. He becomes the nice guy to everyone, except himself. Because deep down he knows he's compromising bit by bit on things he doesn't believe in, doesn't want, doesn't need. The magnetic man, on the other hand, doesn't ask for permission to be himself. He doesn't need to seem nice, he doesn't fear disappointing people, and most importantly, he doesn't need to justify his refusal. When he says no, it doesn't come with "sorry, I'm busy," or "I really wish I could, but..." He doesn't need to prove anything. He knows a clear no is more respectable than a hesitant yes. Why is this so attractive? Because a man who can say no is a man with boundaries. And boundaries are a clear signal of personal value. They say, "I won't accept anything that violates my principles." That message hits everyone: women, friends, business partners, and enemies alike. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be closed off or hostile. It teaches you that inner freedom only comes when your choices are intentional. When you say yes to everything, you're not really choosing, you're just reacting. And reacting isn't living, it's surviving. Practicing the word no doesn't make you cruel. It makes you someone who carries weight, someone whose words mean something, someone others think twice before trying to take advantage of. If you've never made someone uncomfortable by saying no, then maybe you've never been honest with yourself. The world is full of people who say yes just to keep the peace. But real men, they say no to stay straight. Here's a simple but brutal truth. If you don't think for yourself, someone else will do it for you. This world isn't short on educated men. What it lacks is men with a mind of their own. They know a lot, but believe anything that's repeated enough. They read plenty, yet live by standards set by others. They listen to podcasts, watch self-help videos, follow influencers, and then parrot those same words like machines. No digestion, no questioning, no roots. A man without independent thinking is easy to manipulate by media, by the masses, by whoever has the louder voice. And the tragedy? He thinks he's free. Freedom isn't doing what you want. Freedom begins when you know why you're doing it. Most men don't live that way. They pick careers based on what their parents expect. They get married because it's time. They go to work, buy houses, get cars, rack up debt, then sit there wondering why they feel stuck, drained, and lost, because their entire life is a copy of someone else's. A magnetic man doesn't need the crowd to validate his worth. He doesn't need applause to know he's on the right path. He has the patience to walk alone, the strength to stand against the noise, and the guts to admit when he's wrong. Independent thinking isn't about deliberately going against the majority. It's the ability to observe, analyze, filter, and make decisions based on reason, not herd emotion. The Stoics called this intellectual clarity, the ability to stay centered in the eye of public opinion, unmoved by praise or criticism, focused on one thing, the truth. And the truth doesn't shout. It doesn't need shares, trends, or fame. It just needs you to be still enough to see it, and steady enough to follow it. You can't be magnetic if you have no identity, and you have no identity if every belief, every decision, even your dreams, are just copies of someone else's. The world is flooded with recycled versions. What it needs is someone awake enough to live as himself, no matter the cost. Being a man is easy, being a copy is even easier. But being a man who dares to think differently, walk differently, and own his own path, that's what makes you impossible to replace. A real man doesn't make excuses, he takes responsibility. And weak men? They've got a list of names ready to blame: parents, lovers, bosses, the economy, society, childhood, bad luck, even the weather. Everything's at fault except them, and that's why they never grow up. If you can't look in the mirror and say, everything happening in my life is something I created, then you've never truly matured. Because a man only starts living for real when he stands in the middle of the chaos of his own life and claims it as part of who he is. Maybe you can't control everything that happens. True. Accidents, betrayal, failure, loss, sometimes they hit and it's not your fault, but you always control your response. You can use the pain as fuel, or use it as an excuse to stay paralyzed forever. A magnetic man doesn't sit around complaining. He doesn't look for someone to blame. He doesn't hide in pity or fake empathy. He asks one question: what can I do from here? And then he moves. Stoicism teaches nothing belongs to you but your thoughts and your actions. You can't control the times, but you can always control your grit. Magnetic men don't wait for the world to change. They change themselves to face the world. Taking responsibility doesn't mean dumping all the blame on yourself. It means claiming the right to steer. When you blame others, you hand that power away. When you take responsibility, you take it back. That's the difference between a victim and a warrior. One lives passively, the other lives with purpose. You can keep making excuses, but it won't make you more attractive, won't make you stronger, and sure as hell won't take you further. Every excuse, no matter how real, is still a wall between you and who you could become. Live as if everything is your doing, both the good and the bad. Not because it's the absolute truth, but because it's the only mindset that gives you control over your life. No blame, no excuses, no complaining, only action and results. There are two kinds of men who walk into a room. One makes the air heavy, the other lights it up. And you need to ask yourself, which one are you? Weak men are living sources of negative energy. They show up with gloomy faces, half-hearted attitudes, and words dripping with pessimism and fatigue. They don't have to do anything dramatic, just sit there, sigh, complain, and the whole room's mood drops. They're emotional black holes. Stay near them long enough, and you'll feel your will to live slowly fade. The magnetic man is different. He doesn't need to talk much. He doesn't need to shout. But his presence makes people want to live harder, do better, be more. He's not necessarily funny, loud, or inspiring like some stage speaker. But he is a source of light. His calm, his focus, his discipline create a gravitational field that others want to be close to. Why? Because the world is starving for deep, positive energy. Most people only project energy when they're happy. But the moment life pushes them to the edge, they collapse, dragging others down with them. A magnetic man doesn't get that luxury. He's not just a source of strength for himself, he has to be the emotional anchor for those around him. Stoicism teaches, the best action is silent but unwavering. You don't need to hype anyone up with flowery words. Just live with strength, with persistence, and without being swallowed by hardship, and you've already become a transmitter of energy. People look at you and think, if he can do it, I can too. And this cannot be faked. You can't create a positive vibe if inside you're a mess. You can't inspire others if you're burned out from living without purpose. Energy doesn't come from slogans, it comes from inner discipline, from how you face adversity, from your quiet but unshakable endurance. Be the man others want to be around, not because you make them laugh, but because you make them want to become better versions of themselves. The man who radiates energy is the one people don't just remember after he leaves. They're grateful they were ever in his presence. That's how you become magnetic, not just on the surface, but at the level of the soul. You can keep living like most men out there, predictable, easy to manipulate, easy to forget, or you can become the kind of man who can't be ignored, can't be replaced, doesn't need to shout, but always gets noticed. These 7 traits aren't tricks for looking cool. They are the foundation, the essence, the thing that makes you carry weight wherever you go, even in silence. But no one will hand them to you. You have to forge them through pain, discipline, and solitude. It's not easy, but real men don't pick the easy path. They pick the right one. So the final question is, will you keep living like a shadow, or will you become someone even you have to respect? The choice is yours. But remember, this world doesn't stop to wait for the weak. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.